be speaking about the urea production process. Urea is a highly concentrated odorless solid that is soluble in water, and it contains 46.6% nitrogen. So we know that this is highly beneficial for plants. We get this number 46.6% by looking at the formula of urea. We can see that it contains 2 nitrogen atoms, and each nitrogen atom has an atomic mass of 14, so that makes 28. Then we add the atomic masses of the rest of the elements to get 60. So 28 divided by 60 into 100 gives us 46.6%. Now, the 2 main components needed for urea production are carbon dioxide and ammonia. Carbon dioxide can be got from the reaction calcium carbonate breaking down to form calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. But large amounts of carbon dioxide are also formed as a byproduct in ammonia producing plants. So this is why ammonia producing plants and urea producing plants are located nearby each other, because one uses the byproduct of the other. And ammonia is got from the Haber-Bosch process, that is nitrogen with hydrogen giving you ammonia. This is an exothermic process, that means it releases heat, and it also takes place at a high pressure. And we know this is an exothermic process because delta H value is negative. Now moving a step further back, an ammonia producing plant first converts one of the following below into gaseous hydrogen. That is, it converts either natural gas such as methane, LPG such as propane or butane, or petroleum naphtha into gaseous hydrogen through a process called steam reforming, that is obtaining hydrogen from hydrocarbons. The hydrogen is then combined with nitrogen to form ammonia through the Haber-Bosch process. Now, methane is a natural gas, whereas LPGs and petroleum naphtha are obtained during natural gas processing and petroleum refining. So this is just a quick recap of what we already know. Natural gas is a fossil fuel such as coal and oil, and it is formed when plants, animals and microorganisms decompose under layers of soil and sediment over millions of years. The combination of compression and high temperature causes the carbon bonds in the organic matter to break down. This molecular breakdown produces thermogenic methane, such as natural gas. Thermogenic just means heat releasing. Now, methane, probably the most abundant organic compound on Earth, is made up of carbon and hydrogen. So, deposits of natural gas close to the Earth's surface are usually dwarfed by oil deposits nearby. So, natural gas deposits and oil deposits are found near each other. Deeper deposits formed at higher temperatures and under more pressure have more natural gas than oil, and the deepest deposits can be made purely out of natural gas, so you have no oil whatsoever. Now, the natural gas formed deep beneath the Earth's surface can also escape into the atmosphere. So if they are porous rocks or other permeable matter, the gas will bubble up onto the surface, like it's seen on the picture on the right. And it can even be trapped underneath. So if there is an impermeable layer, such as the sedimentary basins, the gas will be trapped inside and it won't be able to rise up to the atmosphere. So this is just a quick look at India's crude oil and natural gas production. So we can see as of 2018-19, India produces 34.20 million metric tons of crude oil and 32.87 billion cubic meters of natural gas. And from the table on the right, we can just look at the states wherein we have oil fields and gas fields and the associated basins. So Gujarat, we have the Cambay Basin. In Assam, we have the Assam and Arakan Basin, Rajasthan, Jodhpur, and so on and so forth. Okay, so what we know so far is that for urea to form, we need carbon dioxide and ammonia. We know we get this carbon dioxide as a byproduct in ammonia producing plants, and we get this hydrogen from natural gas such as methane. So now we can move on to the actual urea formation process. So the Bosch-Meiser urea process is used for commercial scale production of urea. Now this consists of 2 main equilibrium reactions with incomplete conversion of their reactants. So the first reaction involves ammonia in liquid form plus carbon dioxide as a gas to form ammonium carbamate. Now this reaction takes place at high temperature and high pressure, and it's an exothermic reaction. We can see delta H value is negative here. The second equilibrium reaction involves taking this ammonium carbamate found here, which is in liquid form now, and applying heat to it, and it breaks down to form, forms urea in liquid form and water again in liquid form. So this requires heat. It's an endothermic reaction. We can see it requires plus 15.5 kilojoules. So let's go through the flow of the process. So we're taking ammonia in liquid form and carbon dioxide in gaseous form and moving it to a reaction chamber under high temperature and high pressure. So this is basically the first equilibrium reaction, and we're obtaining ammonium carbamate in liquid form. Then we move this ammonium carbamate in liquid form into an evaporator, and we apply heat in the form of steam. So this causes the formation of urea and water in liquid form, and we also have some byproducts or residues, which is ammonia, carbon dioxide, water, and there is even some of the ammonium carbamate which does not form urea. So it's not necessary that all of the ammonium carbonate here has to form urea. There can be some left over in the evaporator itself. But what does form, so the urea that is formed is then moved to a granulator, and steam is pushed from the bottom, and this liquid urea is pushed from the top. So what happens is that the water evaporates and we get solid urea in the form of granules, and that's then taken to the storage facilities. So it's important here that urea is stored in airtight containers, because it's very soluble and it can even absorb water from the atmosphere. So unconverted CO2 and NH3 along with undecomposed carbamate must be recovered and reused. So this is a recycling process which happens for the residues which are present here. Because the urea conversion is incomplete, the product must be separated from the unchanged ammonium carbamate. In early straight-through urea plants, this was done by letting down the system pressure to atmospheric pressure to let the carbamate decompose back to ammonia and carbon dioxide. So what this basically means is that the ammonium carbamate here, which does not form urea, if we reduce the pressure here, it will move back or decompose to it will decompose to ammonia and carbon dioxide. So earlier times what used to happen is that the carbon dioxide was just released, it was wasted, but the ammonia was used for the manufacture of other products such as ammonium nitrate or sulfate. But today we do have a recycling process to use these residues. So this is the recycling process where the ammonia and carbon dioxide in gaseous form is pushed through to a reactor. Again, this happens at high temperature and high pressure, and again we get ammonium carbamate formation. So it's the same process here. These two components here are pushed in here. So this moves, ammonium carbamate is formed, and at each step, now there are 3 different decomposers, and at each step the pressure is constantly decreased. So what happens is that the urea which is formed still continues to flow and moves out through this pipe here. But at each step, when you decrease the pressure, ammonium carbamate again goes back to ammonia and carbon dioxide gas. So that's pushed up here into the condensers, and from here they all are collected and again pushed back to the reactor. So this is basically a circular flow of how the remaining ammonia and carbon dioxide are again processed. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.